What is going on, everyone? And in this video, I'll be giving you my UFC Kansas City Holloway versus Allen main card predictions for the upcoming event taking place this Saturday, April 15, 2023 out of Kansas City, Missouri, USA. This is for Kansas City. No, this is a pretty, I would say a good fight night. It is good to see the fights. At least when they're live, they're not in the Apex. Having some of those names on there, just having a little bit better fights on there in comparison to the Apex. I mean, that's always good to see, because sometimes these cards honestly just feel like they got thrown together, like last minute, like no one even knows what's going on kind of thing. And you know, that's pretty cool for the fight fans, the hardcore fight fans, but you know, obviously, I think it's harder to promote the UFC when you've got like a bunch of these people that like no one's ever heard of. Now, obviously, in the main event, we have Max Holloway taking on Arnold Allen. That's going to be a good one. Co-main event, I think, is going to be a pretty good one as well. Edson Barboza taking on Billy Quarantillo. So that'll be a pretty good main card. And then overall, I think the card is pretty solid, at least for a fight night. So with that, didn't do so well. Actually, I feel like I haven't been doing so well in like the past three whatever events, but you know, looking to get back in there, just changing different ways I watch the fights, jot down the notes, whatever, seeing what works. Who knows? I mean, at the end of the day, no one is a genie, so we can't really predict 100%. But obviously, you want to do your best when you do this kind of stuff. So with that, well, at least I'm not giving away bets, right? That's all. It's always a good thing. But either way, let's go ahead and talk about the first fight on the main card. In the first fight on the main card, we have Guida, 38-19, taking on Rafa García, 15-3, in a lightweight bout. So for Guida, he's coming in this fight, obviously the veteran in the game, 38 wins, 19 losses. I mean, what can you say about him? Guida's average fight time is 12 minutes and 17 seconds, while Garcia's is 14 minutes and 8 seconds. So García also has a little bit more fight time, but that's probably just because I feel like for at least for García, you know, his fights in the UFC primarily going to decision, even if he loses. Whereas Guida obviously has more finishes and then KO TKOs, submissions in there. This one is an interesting one because I feel like Guida, right? He's coming off that win over Scott Holtzman, arguably split decision, whatever. He did get 4 takedowns in that fight. Holtzman, you know, matched him in significant strikes basically, but it's kind of the grappling was the difference, and he really wasn't able to stop it. So, you know, I guess Guida for that one. My only concern here is like the fight with Guida versus Claudio Puelles, where Guida had 3 takedowns, but then he gets caught in the knee bar, and obviously that's not a good thing for him. So I think he is susceptible a little bit to getting submitted. Like he'll put his head in positions that, you know, he shouldn't be getting in, and sometimes he makes those kind of mistakes. When he took on Leonardo Santos, he did get a submission victory there. When he took on Mark Madsen, he lost via split decision. He beat Michael Johnson, lost to Bobby Green, lost to Jim Miller. Obviously, he's a veteran in the game, legend in the game, but I do think when it comes to guys that can do things a little bit better than him, such as submitting, wrestling, kind of outpaced, because he does have really good cardio, but it's not like Guida is, you know, putting up combinations on dudes left and right, pop, pop, pop. You know, it's not like he's dropping people left and right, at least not in the latter half of his career. So for Rafa García is coming off of a win via decision against Manashate, where García got 6 takedowns in that fight. The one before that, he lost to Jokar Close. He did land 3 takedowns. Close landed 2, but he got outstruck 61-34 significant strikes. Lost that fight via unanimous decision. In the fight before that, he won via submission, and then the fight before that, he won via decision. Now, obviously, the one thing here, though, is García, regardless if he's winning or losing, you know, he's getting those takedowns basically. Against Haqparast in his first fight in the UFC, he was unable to land any takedowns and kind of got outstruck. The thing is here, Guida is not one of these dudes where he's like fighting from a distance, right? He'd prefer to get in close. He'll do his little brawl thing. He can definitely land some shots, but at the same time, I feel like he can obviously get cracked as well because his defense isn't necessarily the best thing in close. Guida does absorb fewer strikes per minute. Garcia absorbs more, but I still think like Guida. I think Garcia can definitely land some pretty good power. So if Guida's just relying on like trading in close, I don't think that's gonna be a good idea. Now, I don't know who's gonna be the better wrestler. I think both guys are gonna have pretty solid cardio. I do think Garcia can probably get him down though. I don't see Guida like being able to take down Garcia consistently, and then obviously I don't know, depending on submissions, who's going to be diving in for takedowns, and because at any moment at the end of the day you can get caught with like a guillotine if you're just going and throwing your neck out there and getting taken down, submitted. So I do think, for me, I'm leaning more towards Rafa Garcia, just because I honestly think that he is probably being, I think he's obviously going to be the better grappler here. I think he might be able to keep Guida down if he takes him down, and I do trust his power on the feet as well. It's just that I obviously think Garcia is more adamant of probably trying to get a takedown here. Guida, Guida's gonna be running around the octagon. He's gonna be trying to darting in and out, but still he's gonna have to land something pretty big and then probably go for some sort of finish, because I just feel like Garcia might be able to take him down consistently, and then Guida's not going to be able to get back up, maybe get stuck a little bit on the floor, and then that's not going to be a good thing for Clay Guida. But who knows, maybe Guida's able to take him down. But I just think, like, against Michael Johnson he took him down, against Leonardo Santos he took him down, Scott Holtzman he took him down, but I don't think Garcia, I think Garcia has better grappling than any of those guys. And obviously when Guida fought Mark Madsen just landed a little bit more than him. Neither one of them was able to get the takedown. Madsen only went for one takedown, so it's not that big of a deal. And then honestly, anything past, I would even argue like Jim Miller is kind of pointless to talk about, because it was just like so long ago. I think what we're seeing from Clay Guida right now, he's gonna beat guys who he has better wrestling against, and then against guys who can not get taken down by him, possibly take him down. He's probably gonna struggle a little bit unless he can land something or make a big mistake. So I'm not gonna think all that. That's a little too far right there. Obviously Guida could win, legend in the game, but for me, I'm gonna go Rafa Garcia to defeat Clay Guida. Also gonna win by a decision. In the second fight on the main card, we have Pedro Munhoz, 19-7, taking on Chris Gutierrez, 19-3-2, in a bantamweight bout. Obviously, for this one, Pedro Munhoz being the more, the one fighting the higher level competition, coming off the no contest against Sean O'Malley. Really not much to that fight. Pedro Munhoz was obviously trying to close the distance. O'Malley was trying to keep him at bay. I don't really see the point of going too much into that one, because we didn't really get a good sample size. His fight against Dominic Cruz, Munhoz did basically drop him twice, credited one knockdown, whatever. But even in that fight, very, very predictable for Munhoz. Kind of close the distance, wildly swing, throw some leg kicks in there, try to counter. But that's about it, right? It's not like he's kind of predictable in that way. And, Dominic Cruz early on did get dropped, but he eventually pulls off a unanimous decision because he kind of pulls away in the striking. Against Aldo, obviously Aldo was just able to land the better shots. Again, Munhoz lacking behind 75 significant strikes to Aldo's 114. Against Jimmy Rivera, he did get the decision victory. Jimmy Rivera, also kind of similar style. Rivera did land one takedown in that fight, but Munhoz was able to land the better shots. Pedro Munhoz lost to Frankie Edgar, which is like even during 2020 highly questionable, especially with how Edgar. I feel like most people are knocking Edgar out. Munhoz lost that fight probably because he got taken down twice. He did land more, but Edgar was able to get that grappling. And then he obviously lost to Aljamain Sterling, got outstruck. I just think it's probably, though, because Pedro Munhoz is very predictable. It's not like he's landing all these combinations like Aldo right back in his prime. He does have that power. He can drop you like he did to Dominic Cruz, but if he's not able to finish you, and you're able to keep pulling away, you're just going to pull away and win the fight. Now, that being said, though, Pedro Munhoz is a tough bastard, so I don't really see him getting taken out here, in my opinion. Obviously, anything can happen, but I feel like he's not going to get taken out. Chris Gutierrez, on the other hand, well, not up and comer, obviously been in the UFC a little bit, but I'm, starting to fight that, a little bit better competition and getting to that point. Now, he sent Frankie Edgar to the shadow realm, but I mean, honestly, at that point, like I said, you got to be knocking out Frankie Edgar, unfortunately. Before that, spinning back fist. So he can also come out of nowhere, right, with these knees, spinning back fist. He is big power. I think he's a pretty fast fighter as well. And I say that in the sense of, like, he'll put together some pretty good combinations, including the power, and very technical. He doesn't look sloppy, right? He's not just rushing in and just throwing down, right? He's going to pick his shots, throw the leg kicks. I mean, he's going to have to check some leg kicks here. He goes to the body as well. Really looks pretty clean. Has a couple decision victories. I don't, he doesn't have to worry about getting taken down in this fight. If anyone's getting taken down, maybe Gutierrez tries to go for a takedown. So honestly, if he can just stay away from Munhoz's power, meaning he doesn't just constantly get backed up and, tripped or something like that, and Munhoz is just teeing off on him, I think Gutierrez is going to be able to pick him apart, maybe land some good shots here and there, just be the faster fighter, be the more well-versed fighter, and land the more volume. Actually, their volume might be able to be matched, but I still think Gutierrez is going to land the more significant shots, and then, obviously at the end of everything, he'll be the one to win by a decision. So with that being said, again, I think you got to get through Pedro Munhoz to go to that next level, and I think Chris Gutierrez is going to be able to do that. So I'm going to go Chris Gutierrez to defeat Pedro Munhoz. I'll take him to win by a decision. In the third fight on the main card, we have Tanner Boser, 29-1, taking on Ion Cutelaba, 16-9-1 in a light heavyweight bout. This is one of those fights that's super sketch because on paper, I'm just leaning Tanner Boser, right? Because, yeah, Ion Cutelaba is an absolute monster who can rip your head off, but in his past 3 fights has made some horrible mistakes to be submitted in 2 of them and then finished in his previous fight. Right? He gets a takedown or he has the positioning and then he kind of just gets reversed or whatever, and then he gets absolutely crushed. I mean, in his last fight against Njoku, Kennedy Njoku, he had 2 takedowns, and the next thing you know, he's getting kneed, taken out, right? Second round. Before that against Johnny Walker, he's losing via submission, right? But he took him down. And it's just, all over from there. Against Ryan Spann, he takes him down. He takes him down 3 times and then gets submitted. Against Devin Clark, he takes Devin Clark down 8 times and actually wins that fight via unanimous decision. In a fight where, honestly, he looked his best, right? Because he had a knockdown in that one as well. That's like the anomaly out of all of this. Against Dustin Jacoby, he has a draw. It was a split decision, but then it was a draw, whatever. Against Ion Cutelaba, he took down Dustin Jacoby 9 times, but got outstruck in that fight. Against Magomed Ankalaev, obviously lost that one. First one lost, whatever. He took out Cahill Roundtree Jr., took him down 4 times, elbowed him. But that's, again, 2019, you're starting to get a little bit out there, right? So I think, obviously, Ion Cutelaba, massive power, aggression, whatever. But this dude needs to just slow it down because he's not winning his fights. His past 3 fights, he honestly could have probably won if he just didn't get so adamant about, like, I'm going to take him down. And then he gasses out, right? Because he's landing all these shots. He's putting everything into his power, into these takedowns even. And then he's getting reversed or whatever, or he's gassed out, right? It just looks really sloppy, in my opinion. So someone like Tanner Boser, it's like, okay, this guy isn't necessarily the best, right? It's not like you look at him and you're like, oh, man, he's going to be the top, right? He's going to go for the title soon. He lost his last fight via split decision against Rodrigo Nascimento, right? So he lands more significant strikes, but he gets taken down 3 times. In his fight before that, he defeated Ovince St. Preux. St. Preux's not looking so bright as of late, so kind of froze. OSP kind of froze in that one. Against Ilir Latifi, Latifi took him down 2 times, lost that fight, split decision. Against Andrei Arlovsky, unanimous decision loss. Arlovsky I guess just landing the better shots. And then you start going back too far. So Boser has to slow this fight down, right? He has to get Cutelaba to be working way too much, reverse him, right? And maybe not reverse. I mean, he could honestly reverse him, honestly, at this point. Or Boser can kind of outpace him if Cutelaba's, does his typical, like, come out there, full blast, and next thing you know, this dude's, like kind of gassed out. I could see Boser taking over because he can put up, I think he can put up some pretty decent shots over the course of 3 rounds, pepper, pop, pop, pop. But again, this is a very winnable fight for Ian Cutelaba. It's just like he keeps making these big mistakes that just make it so sketchy to pick him. Because you're like, oh yeah, man, he's going to go out there and take his head off. Next thing you know, Cutelaba slips or something. He's going for a takedown and Boser just slams his elbow into the side of his head and then gets knocked out. And then it's all over. So it's sketchy stuff like that. And yeah, obviously, I think if Cutelaba wants to stay in the UFC, he's probably going to have to win this one because it's not looking, he's got 1 win since since September 28th of 2019. It's not the best look, right? Especially when you're making these drastic mistakes. Like, how come you're not slowing things down? Slow it down, man. You don't got to be landing 20 takedowns in the first 2 minutes of the fight. You don't have to just rush out there and just overhand right, boom, and just put everything into it, and next thing you know, you're getting countered and you're gassed out. Like, it's just not it. So honestly, I feel like this is one of those fights that is going to end pretty quickly because either we're going to have Cutelaba just annihilate Boser, like maybe just catches him overhand right, boom, he's dead, or takes him down and Boser has nothing for him and he's getting, KO'd. Or we see Cutelaba do one of these things and then Boser basically just counters him, or like I said, he's getting taken down and next thing you know, he reverses the position. Cutelaba's like, oh shit. And then Boser just like elbowing him in his head. That's why I think the fight is going to end pretty quickly in the first round based on what we've seen so far. And like I said, I really do think Cutelaba has to win this fight. So we'll see. But I'm picking guys that have to win these fights. And then next, they're getting absolutely crushed. So for me, I have to switch it up for this one. I think the obvious, pick here is like an Ian Cutelaba round 1, kill him. But I do think Boser is going to reverse it. I just have no faith in Cutelaba. So for me, I'm going to go Tanner Boser to defeat Ian Cutelaba. I'll take him to win by round 1, KO TKO. In the 4th fight on the main card, we have Dustin Jacoby, 18-6-1, taking on Azamat Murzakanov, 12-0, in a light heavyweight bout. Now, I think a lot of people are counting out Murzakanov. I think maybe they think, he's going to just come out here, gas out, or he's always going to be able to do is land a big shot here and there. And then if he can't put Jacoby away, obviously he has a pretty good chin. What is he going to do? And I think that's kind of a bad way to look at it because Jacoby, yeah, I mean, give credit where credit's due, right? He put up against a guy like Khalil Roundtree Jr., didn't get taken out by him, 120 significant strikes to his 85. But also Roundtree is kind of known for just kind of one-shotting people and not really having that volume and then slowly gassing out or whatever. Jacoby took out Dunwoo Jung in the last fight. Before that, KO TKO round number 1. One via decision in the previous fight decision, KO TKO, drawn against Ian Cutelaba, got taken down. But the thing is here is I feel like Murzakanov isn't one of those guys though that's just throwing wildly and hoping that something lands. He seems super speed. He has good speed. That fight on the Dana White Contender Series where he absolutely crushed him. I mean, that was a really fast punch. And obviously, he's not diving in for takedowns here or there. But I do think it's something to keep an eye out for because Murzakanov, if he needs to slow the fight down, close the distance, I feel like he might be able to grapple Jacoby here. And we'll have to see, how Jacoby deals with that. But at the same time, man, I mean, Jacoby's going to be peppering him, right? But at the same time, it's only going to take a couple of shots for Murzakanov to land pretty heavy, possibly find Jacoby's chin. But at the same time, just by landing those harder shots, it could look like he's doing more damage. And, you know, obviously, I mean, he might be doing more damage. So I think, I guess what people are probably thinking here is Jacoby doesn't get taken down. And then he's also able to kind of just out-volume Murzakanov. But at the same time, I do think Murzakanov is probably going to land the harder shots. So, you know, it's really going to come down to, like, what is Murzakanov going to, like, how is he going to game plan this, right? Is he going to try to go out there, rip his head off? Or is he going to know, like, Dustin Jacoby is going to try to out-volume me? But I want to show people that I can out-volume him too, right? And if he can keep that long fight, slow the pace down, right? So don't just empty out everything. I think he can keep the pace, land the harder shots. He might not have the more volume, but he'll be landing the more damage, possibly mixing in a takedown here and there, getting in close, disrupting Jacoby's game, not letting him just jab him to death, and then possibly pull off a victory here. So, again, I think it's a tougher fight for Jacoby than, like, I guess what the odds are saying. But I do think Murzakanov might have a little bit more than just big power or whatever. And I think he's going to show that. So, but again, Dustin Jacoby, I do think is a tough bastard. So I don't see him getting absolutely killed here. So I'm going to go Azamat Murzakanov to defeat Dustin Jacoby. Also, I'm going to win by a decision. In the co-main event of the evening, we have Edson Barboza, 22-11, taking on Billy Quarantillo, 17-4 in a featherweight bout. Edson Barboza, another veteran in the game, right? Coming out here, but he's been on some losses. Coming off a loss against Bryce Mitchell, unanimous decision. Wasn't able to defend those takedowns, kind of got smothered. Really didn't have anything. And even in that fight, Mitchell was able to drop him. In the previous fight before that, he took on Giga Chikadze. Also got dropped twice in that fight, and just really had nothing for the striking and just that pressure. Like, Barboza just doesn't deal well with pressure, and he got taken out in the third round. Before that, obviously, he lands that unique KO, that weird KO, the jab, basically, against Shane Burgos, takes him out. But at the same time, Burgos wasn't going to be a guy who was going to... I feel like Burgos just wasn't... Like, he's aggressive, but he's not pressuring you to death to where, like, you're backed up against the fence. And then at the same time, Burgos wasn't threatening with takedowns. Against Makwan Amirkhani, he defeated him by unanimous decision. Now, that's a little bit more of a classic. But even before that, lost to Dan Ige, lost to Paul Felder, lost to Justin Gaethje. So, I mean, I know the two fights against Ige and Felder were split decisions, but still, right? Going through some battles there, and then against, like, that pressure fighter, you're just not able to deal with it. Now, that's why this fight is interesting, because Billy Quarantillo, albeit, like, he's not knocking people out, like, in the first round. I mean, this dude eats some damage, right? We saw it against Shane Burgos. Definitely didn't look too great in that one. But he was hanging in there, right? And he was landing the volume, was able to just eat the shots, didn't get finished. Against Alexander Hernandez, we really saw him eat some damage, but then come back in the second round, basically, and start to break down Alexander Hernandez, because this dude's not going to give up, right? He's going to keep coming and coming, even when you unleash everything on him. Like, you really got to take this guy out. Against Gabriel Benitez, landed 3 takedowns in that fight, and he was able to get the KO TKO in round number 3. Against Gavin Tucker, he lost via decision. He got taken down 7 times. So I don't think Quarantillo obviously is going to have to worry about getting taken down in this fight. He does need to watch about how much damage he's absorbing, because obviously if Barboza lands like a flash knee on his head and KOs him, you know, at the end of the day, you're not eating some of these shots, right? Barboza can generate a very a good amount of force in a very small amount of time / distance, space, right? This dude is going to flying knee you, know, spinning roundhouse kick you into the back of the head, spinning wheel kick, like all this stuff, jab you, right? His jab is so quick, snaps your head back, you go to sleep. Who knows, right? And on top of that, Barboza, the switch kicking, so that's, you know, that can obviously take away your movement. So Quarantillo, albeit like, yeah, I can eat the damage, you know, probably don't want to do that too much in this fight. So for Quarantillo, smother him, take him down, make him pay on the floor, right? Don't try to trade with this guy. But at the same time, maybe Quarantillo does eat some of his best shots while he's taking him down. And then, like, in the second round, we start to see Barboza just basically gassed out, broken down a little bit. He's not able to get his game going. He's not able to kick the shit out of him. He's getting taken down, put up against the fence, having to get back up. He hit Quarantillo with some of his best shots. Quarantillo's just smiling, blood dripping down his face. And then in that third round, we start to see Quarantillo basically just break him. And I think, these are one of those passing of the guards, right? Quarantillo is probably like the least known name on this list in the past 5 fights for Edson Barboza, right? Giga Chikadze, Bryce Mitchell, Shane Burgos, Makwan, Amir Khani, Danny Ige, Paul Fight. And then you got a Billy Quarantillo. So I think this is Quarantillo's fight. He really has to dominate this one. Little sketched out just because I obviously I don't think Quarantillo's striking is as good as Barboza. But if he can implement that pressure game, take him down, drain some of Barboza's energy, I think obviously Barboza will start to lose his whole ability to land something crazy. And then he'll get frustrated and really not have an answer. So he's going to have to fight a smart fight. It could be a bloody one. I mean, honestly, we could see Quarantillo get hurt and come back and win like he usually does. And that would be pretty exciting to watch. But yeah, this could be, unfortunately for Edson Barboza, passing of the guard to the next contenders in the featherweight division. So for me, I'm going to go Billy Quarantillo. I'm actually going to take him to defeat Edson Barboza by round 3 KO TKO. In the main event of the evening, we have Max Holloway, 23-7, taking on Arnold Allen, 19-1, in a featherweight bout. This is going to be an exciting fight. Mainly, in my opinion, though, just because we actually get to see Arnold Allen fight, previous champion, basically, and then one of the, if not one of the best strikers in all of UFC / obviously the featherweight division. And because obviously in the last fight, Arnold Allen taking on Calvin Kattar, we didn't really get to see much. Now he obviously won KO TKO whatever in round number 2, but his knee, Kattar's knee blew out, and that really wasn't the best thing. You could argue that Allen was starting to find some success, whatever. I still think though, I mean we saw, but look, what we saw with Holloway and how he absolutely disposed of Calvin Kattar, 445 significant strikes to his 133. I mean, absolutely killed him, right? I mean, some of those refs probably would have just stopped the fight, right? Someone throwing the towel or whatever. But so Arnold Allen starting to find some success against Kattar. It's like, I mean, that's great. Like I don't discredit it. It's not like, oh shit, he's trash still. But it's, are you going to be able to do the same thing against Holloway? Barring an injury, obviously. Hopefully there's no injuries. But still something to think about, because I think Holloway is just on another level when it comes to, and Arnold Allen's striking is pretty good. Like he darts in, left. He's a pretty good left hand. But at the same time, I mean, Holloway is going to take advantage of some of these times where I just feel like Allen is a little bit defensively exposed on the feet. And of those moments, then we might see Allen go in for the grappling, try to slow the fight down, see what he can do there. But obviously, Max Holloway, pretty good takedown defense. So if Holloway is able to defend some of these takedowns, light Arnold Allen up on the feet, we might be getting a little bit too hyped about Arnold Allen. That's all I'm going to say, because we've seen this in some of the previous events with Corey Sandhagen, Rob Font. You start to, maybe these guys aren't the next ones, and they're losing some of their fights, but then they go out there and they absolutely crush the young guy coming up. So I think it's disrespectful. That's why he's a slight underdog. Good thing Max Holloway, in my opinion, is still the favorite. I think, I've been prone to be doing it lately, is kind of discounting some of these guys that are like having fights against the best guys in the entire division, like back to back, right? And then being like, oh, they lost 3 fights, and like even Peter Yan probably will go out here and kick someone's ass, right? Even though he hasn't been on the good side in his last couple fights. But it's like, I don't think that means they're done. It's just they're probably going to beat everyone outside of the top, 5, top 10 maybe. But then when it comes into like the top 5, they start to struggle. But doesn't mean they suck, right? And I think that's gonna be like Max Holloway is, yeah, he couldn't get past Volkanovski, but that doesn't mean that like he's done, man. He's all. I don't think that's what that means. I mean, look at what Yair Rodriguez was able to do in his last fight, and then, but at the same time, look at Max Holloway and what he did to Rodriguez. So it's just like a weird thing, because I think you could sit here and be like, Max Holloway is trash, dude. Like, he's losing. He lost 3 times to Volkanovski. But how do you not know if like everyone's gonna lose to Volkanovski 3 times? So I think instead of just hyping on the Arnold Allen train and be like, yeah, man, he's gonna take him down, or he's gonna drop bombs on his head on the feet. I mean, he could very well do that, right? I think if anything, it'd be mixing in a little bit of the grappling. Possibly, I still think it's going to be hard for him to hit Holloway and not pay for it. So, I mean, if anything, it'd be like the grappling of Arnold Allen. If he can work some grappling in there, maybe that would open up his striking, and then we can kind of see how that plays out. He has good kicks as well. But yeah, I mean, like, Holloway's going to be hard to take down. Holloway's going to be hard to just constantly light up. And then obviously Holloway's going to be pressing forward on Arnold Allen. He's going to want to take his head off. So very interesting fight. But then on the opposite side of that, yeah, I mean, obviously if Holloway goes out there, looks really slow, looks like, all these Volkanovski fights have taken a lot out of him, then yeah, I mean, that's a completely different story. But until we see that, I'm going to hop back on the old OGs of the game, see what they got left in them. Because I've been, like I said, I think I see somebody lose 4 times against like top level competition, and then it's easy to just write them off, when the reality is like they probably will still beat the majority of people. So with that being said, for me, I have to go Max Holloway on this one. I do think it's gonna be an entertaining fight. We'll have to see how Arnold Allen deals with the striking, and then we'll obviously, and the pressure of Holloway, and then we'll have to see how Holloway deals with probably the hungriness and the aggression, possibly grappling / just power that Allen's going to bring to the table. And when they clash, we'll have to see what happens. But for me, I'm gonna go Max Holloway to defeat Arnold Allen. I'm taking him to win by decision. And so that'll do it, guys, for my UFC Kansas City main card predictions for the upcoming event taking place April 15, 2023 out of Kansas City. Going to be an interesting main event. Co-main event's pretty solid too. Overall, I think a pretty decent fight night. Looking forward to it. Hopefully I do somewhat better than I did last week and the previous week. But either way, leave your comments down below. Who are you picking? Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you guys in the next video.